This might be one of the most ambitious VR sci-fi RPGs we've seen in early access so far, and also one of the most frustrating.
Oh.
Into the Darkness VR puts you in a futuristic setting with impressive visuals, immersive sound design, and some clever ideas that feel VR appropriate. But all of that potential hits a wall the moment the gameplay starts to fight you back.
You know, for a game with so much cool shit going on, this really is not... Okay.
It's a wild mix of high-concept big brain moves and early access jank. In this video, I'll break down where this game shines, where it stumbles, and whether it's worth your time in its current state. Starting with the theme, Into the Darkness VR actually nails this aspect. It sets itself up as a futuristic sci-fi action RPG, and honestly, it delivers on that core vibe right out of the gate. It feels like it knows exactly what kind of game it wants to be. It's very much an action-first experience, and while it doesn't always flow perfectly, it's got that high concept energy you'd expect from something trying to reach AAA territory. What kept me invested was the story mode. It did an impressive job keeping me engaged. Well, at least until falling through the map broke the momentum. But this game has a roadmap, if not a pretty ambitious one. There's a lot coming, from new modes and features to things that honestly feel like they should already be in the game. Gameplay polish, like fixing core mechanics and refining the environment, is a ways down on the list. In this VR title's case, what the developer might perceive as polish is kind of essential to the core gameplay. Still, I'll say that Into the Darkness VR might have more potential than any early access story-driven VR game I've played recently. It's got a long road ahead, but the vision is there. Now let's get into the mechanics. This is where things really start to unravel. To put it bluntly, Into the Darkness VR is seriously lacking polish on the mechanics side. It officially dropped into early access at the end of May, and as of this early July review, there haven't been any major updates. Normally that wouldn't be a huge red flag. Early access is supposed to be messy, but I'd honestly put the jank score somewhere between A and S tier. It's that noticeable.
Yeah, I'm dead. I still managed to kill him while I was dead.
Which is kind of a shame because this game actually has some brilliant immersive touches, like being able to scan your surroundings just by holding your hand up to your ear. This kind of design feels made for VR, but all of that gets overshadowed by how inconsistent the core gameplay feels. Let's start with hand-to-hand combat. You can grab enemies and fight them barehanded, which sounds awesome until you try it. It's clunky, awkward, and rarely plays out the way you intend. The next step up, melee weapons like knives and ice picks should be more effective, but honestly they feel borderline dangerous and not in a good close quarters combat way. It's more like, I'm flailing and hoping the physics don't bug out, kind of dangerous. Even basic shooting doesn't escape the jank. I noticed early on that my handgun just didn't feel right, like the aiming was being pulled up, almost as if the gun was fighting against me, and that's not even getting into the body slot inventory system. Putting items away or trying to get them back out often felt harder than dealing with the actual enemies. If I'm being real, this game probably shouldn't be in early access just yet. The foundation is there, sure, but from a mechanical standpoint, it feels like it needs a few more months, maybe more, development before being pushed out to players. Now, visually speaking, Into the Darkness VR is actually kind of stunning. The graphics are way more polished than what you'd expect from an indie VR title. From the moment I dropped in, it was clear a lot of care went into how the whole experience looked. One moment that really stuck with me was when my AI assistant appeared in the palm of my hand. I'm not talking about a flat UI or static hologram either. She's animated and even had actual hair physics. It was a small touch, but it felt like something out of a much higher budget experience, and it immediately sold me on the game's visual direction. Everything in the environment has this sterile shine to it that fits the futuristic sci-fi tone perfectly. That slick, clean style does a lot of the heavy lifting for immersion, and for the most part, it works. That said, not every environment hits right. One early example is the ice bridge. I thought my game was bugging out because I kept getting pulled to the left, but turns out there was wind physics at play, pushing everything across the bridge. Which, fine, makes sense, but what didn't make sense was the fact that you had to jump across this cracking ice bridge to make it across. It felt more confusing than intense because I couldn't tell if the ice was slippery or what was going on. But even with that kind of hiccup, I have to say, visually, this game is great to look at. The lighting, textures, and overall presentation feel far beyond the usual early access indie title. It just needs a bit more environmental clarity and a few key spots to really round things out. Audio-wise though, Into the Darkness VR is great. And honestly, most of this game is awesome. It's just the mechanics that trip it up. But when it comes to sound design, they absolutely nailed it.
You're looking a little pale though. That's pretty normal for this kind of procedure. But let's not waste time. There's an urgent mission for you.
What's the mission?
I'll brief you on the way. We have a few things to get done before you depart. Follow me.
The effects feel consistent and believable whether you're moving through different environments or caught in the middle of combat. Even the NPC dialogue holds up. For an indie VR title, the voice work and audio direction feel surprisingly solid. It's not flat or robotic like you'd expect for an early access game in this weight class. From a sound perspective, I've got no complaints. It's one of the parts of the game that quietly exceeds expectations. As for the options, one of the first things I noticed was the resolution scale adjustment. I have to say, being able to tweak that made a big difference in how good this game looked in my headset. Beyond that, you've got super specific graphic settings, texture quality, effect quality, and other visual settings you can fine-tune individually, which is always appreciated. There's even a color blindness mode, and what's cool is that you can set it right from the options menu or choose it naturally during early in-game dialogue.
Were you colorblind or was it someone else?
Must have been someone else.
Ah, knew it.
That said, there's one pretty noticeable omission. There's no vignette option. And with how much movement and chaos this game throws at you, especially in combat, this is the kind of title that could really benefit from one. VR comfort settings matter, and that's something I hope gets added down the line. Still, it's early access, so take all of this with a grain of salt.
But yeah, the UI has its own volume slider. That's crazy.
When everything is said and done, Into the Darkness VR gets so much right and just one thing wrong, but unfortunately it's a big one. The visuals are great, the audio is solid, the UI elements are clean, and the environmental design isn't terrible by any means, but then you get to the mechanics and that's where the cracks start to show. Physics that does physics things, unreliable melee, weird gun handling, and some frustrating inventory interactions all end up pulling you out of the experience instead of anchoring you in it. So while I couldn't recommend this game in its current state, I could recommend hitting the like button and subscribing before you check out one of my other many VR game reviews. Thanks for watching, and until next time.
Didn't mean to do that. Oh, nope.
We're not doing that? Okay. My gun. Okay. Yeah, that is not fun. This is actually very annoying.